Awesome. Thanks, Dennis. Maybe I have a few ideas for Leo based on kind of your talk, because what we like talking about is also a lot about interoperability of games specifically through blockchain and through NFTs. And we like talking about gamification a lot, okay? We're in a business of gamifying games, essentially. So I'm Adrian, I'm the founder and CEO at Spieleworks. At Spieleworks, we have two main products. That's one is Wombat. That's a Web3 gaming platform, essentially kind of a Steam for Web3. So we bring users, we bring players into Web3 games. And we also run a game that's called Wombat Dungeon Master. It has its first birthday next year, and it's an interoperability game, essentially, that gamifies NFTs, where you can stake NFTs and get rewards on top. And it basically allows all kinds of collection owners and all kinds of game creators to have their NFTs stakeable to allow for more utility and more gamification for these NFTs. So in general, when we talk about gamification, you'd think that gamifying games sounds odd because games are gamified all by itself. It's kind of in the name, right? So why would you gamify games? The reason why you would gamify games is that you get more. What do you get more of? You get more playtime in the games. You get more players. You get more people to actually play the game. You get more action. So everyone does more. You get more engagement. Everybody goes deeper in the game. And that all basically means that you get more revenue as a game creator, right? So that's why we gamify games, because it basically brings more of the stuff that all game creators want to game creators. So what do we mean with gamification via NFTs? So basically it's three main building blocks that we have. There's obviously more that you can do, right? One is the most basic one is getting NFTs for playing games, right? So that's kind of the core building block that we've done, and we've done that on top of Web 2 games, of traditional games. And it's crazy how effective that is and how much people actually want to play games. Typical, traditional, normal games that are basically proven winners with tens of millions or hundreds of millions of downloads. And if you add a layer of NFTs on top, where you basically just hand out NFTs, let's say based upon 10 hours of playtime or reaching level 5 or level 10 or something like that, then a lot of magical things happen, and people definitely want these NFTs. Even if they've never heard of NFTs before, if they've never had an NFT, they really love that. And then what you can do with these NFTs is run challenges, basically, or like in general, you can obviously do that, right? So there's like also in the traditional space, there's been a lot of gamification through challenges and stuff, through quests. And these are kind of the building blocks of gamification in the traditional space as well. But when we talk about gamification with NFTs, then there's much more things that we can do. So one of the most amazing things is that games essentially can be, NFTs can actually be games already, right? So if you look, for instance, at dynamic NFTs, hardly anybody is talking about dynamic NFTs, right? But dynamic NFTs can be so cool. So the most boring example of dynamic NFTs, or one of the most boring examples, which is already amazing, is something like, what's it called? This one, Fly Meta. You should check it out. It's also on OpenSea. It's essentially boarding passes, or like digital representations of boarding passes. It's not real boarding passes. But based on what's going on in the destination, the look of the boarding pass changes. So you can see it in this picture here. It says Antarctica, and if it's really cold, it's going to be like iced, right? Or if there was one for Bordeaux, and if there were the bushfires in Bordeaux, it had burnt corners, right? So how that like technically happens doesn't really matter. What matters is that it's amazing, right? And there's much more things that you can do with dynamic NFTs. You can actually, like my favorite example of that would be a tree that basically is a seed in the beginning, right? And the more this NFT gets traded, the bigger the tree grows. And depending on like how big the trade was, depending on the trade volume, how much money has been spent for this NFT, the different branches would grow, right? And you can obviously build that up programmatically. And it would be an amazing thing where the thing that you would buy in a marketplace would actually look different than the thing that you actually get, right? So there's amazing things all by themselves that can be done with dynamic NFTs, and they can be games all by themselves, right? Just like my tree example, this is already a game, right? You could basically, in order to find out what the tree looks like in its kind of biggest form, you would have to trade it a lot, right? So you could gamify trading of this NFT just within this NFT. But there's a lot more that you can do with NFTs, like all by themselves. And you've, sorry, you may have seen CryptoKitties 5 years back. CryptoKitties got launched 5 years back. CryptoKitties introduced the concept of breeding, so you could use 2 cats and breed them and get a new cat that had different merged properties of the 2 parent cats, right? You can do merging. There was an awesome project by Pack, one of the most famous NFT artists, where you basically had just a little white dot on the black background or a black dot on the white background, depending on kind of how big that is. And the bigger the mass, the bigger the dot would be. And you can't have more than one of these NFTs in your wallet, because the moment that you transfer a second of these NFTs into your wallet, both of them would get merged, and the mass would be added up, right? So if you hold an NFT with mass 1 and you transfer another NFT with mass 1, you would not have 2 NFTs with mass 1 each, but you would have 1 NFT with mass 2, right? So that way you could merge this NFT. And this was a big thing last year, where I think they had over, I don't know, 1 billion in trading volume or something like that. It was crazy. And another thing that's, I see somebody from Atomic here, that's a big thing on the Wax blockchain, not that much of a big thing outside of the Wax and EOS space. It's blending. It's also an amazing functionality in general, where you can actually send or destroy 2 or more different NFTs, and you get a different NFT in return, right? So it's basically, you basically mix these NFTs that you put in, and you get a different NFT out, typically an upgrade over what you actually put in. So these are all things that you can already do with NFTs that are already gamification, and there's a lot of people who spend a lot of time and a lot of money on just these, right? These are just built into NFTs. And now there's even more things that you can do on top of these NFTs that are already gamified, right? So you can add even more layers of gamification on top of that. So one thing that pretty much all games do, obviously, is you can equip them as gear in games, or you can use them in your Metaverse, or like all the examples that Leo gave, basically. One thing that we added, and that's also available on within other games, is that you can stake NFTs for some kind of financial return or some kind of non-financial return within a game, right? So in our game, you get mining power by staking NFTs, and this is yet another layer of gamification. Obviously, you can blend NFTs, and then these better NFTs get you more mining power by staking. And again, you can run all kinds of challenges on top of these NFTs. You can say, okay, whoever merges, blends, breeds, buys, sells, burns the most NFTs will get a prize, right? So we're doing layers and layers on top of each other's with gamification. Why is using NFTs for that kind of gamification so cool, right? Because you could argue that you can do that without NFTs, you can do that with all kinds of objects already, and yes, you can, but it's so much cooler with NFTs because NFTs are interoperable by default, right? So you don't have to ask for permission. So we don't have to ask any creators of NFTs whether or not they would want to become stakeable, because that's why they're NFTs, right? You don't need permission to actually grant access to another feature by these NFTs. There's all kinds of collaborations that you can do. You can do, for instance, cross-collection blends and other kind of merges that are possible with different types of collections where, I mean, you know all these examples of Artifact is one of them, right? Obviously, they do all kinds of collabs. So that's really cool with NFTs, that you can basically take the originals and then you can say, okay, whoever owns this and whoever owns that from another collection will get this collab kind of thing, right? And NFTs are player-owned. So what's cool about this gamification is that whatever, with NFTs, whatever kind of effort you put in terms of time, money, whatever, you will get to keep that, right? And that's obviously, I mean, with NFTs, that's kind of the major thing that everyone talks about and how they got popular and invented. But with gamification, it's actually a thing because most of the gamification that is being done is basically that's lost time and energy and money for the people who actually are getting gamified, right? And one thing that's also cool about NFTs is that there are future options. So what I mean with that is that you don't know what might happen in the future with this NFT. So just like with Bored Apes, nobody knew that there's going to be a huge thing that's called Ape Fest, where everyone could come in who holds an ape or a mutant ape, right? So you don't know if you hold this NFT, what might come what might come your way because you own this NFT, right? And that can happen with any NFT, right? So I could say, or the organizers here of Berlinverse could say, okay, anyone holding this type of NFT will get a free ticket, right? And that's a future option, and you don't know whether that's going to happen, so you better keep your NFTs. So just to sum it up, we think that, and I personally think that NFTs will kind of be at the core of a lot of gamification. We do that with games, and we think that with games it's very beneficial, right? Because you can basically add, what I said, a lot of additional engagement and these kinds of things on top. But not only in games you can do that, you can obviously do that in entertainment as well. So there's this notion of, let's imagine you like one live show, I don't know, Germany's Next Top Model, whatever, right? And you watch all episodes of Germany's Next Top Model, and there's some kind of a POAP, a proof of attendance or proof of watching in this show where you can scan a QR code and you'll get one NFT minted to your wallet, right? And then you could say, okay, if you have all of these NFTs for the entire series or for the entire season, you can merge them or blend them, or you'll get this super cool VIP fan kind of NFT, which will grant you access to I don't know, meet and greet with Heidi Klum, whatever, right? So in entertainment, that's a big thing. And with brands, I mean, we've seen some of that already with, I don't know, Starbucks announcing NFTs on Polygon and these kinds of things, right? So a lot of brands will be doing, or have been doing, a lot of NFTs, Adidas with Bored Apes and these kinds of things. So there's a lot of gamification that's possible through NFTs for brands as well. There will be things that we haven't thought about yet, right? So just like the dynamic NFTs thing, that's still in its infancy. There's going to be so many things that we haven't even thought about. Just like if we look back 20 years, nobody would have thought that we all carry a phone with us all the time, right? And so nobody can imagine what's going to be there with NFTs and crypto stuff 5 or 10 years from now. And there's also a lot of things that we need to solve still, right? So there's like, what does it look like cross-chain? NFTs are still a problem when you think about bridging them over from one chain to the other, right? Because you don't want to lose the properties of this NFT. Privacy might be an issue. So what does this look like if you actually don't want everybody to see what you've been doing? And obviously things like liquidity and stuff. So Leo talked about fractionalization of NFTs. That might be a solution for that, maybe not, right? So there's a lot of very interesting questions there. So that was it already. I just wanted to give you some food for thought about gamification. So if you want to gamify games or anything else, then come talk to me, specifically if you want to use NFTs for that. So thanks a lot and have a good day and have fun with the panel afterwards. I'm not sure whether we've got time for questions. What time is it? No? 1 minute? Any questions? Please. Yes.
Oh, thank you. Especially among hardcore gamers. So what do you think about it, and how do you think it's possible to defeat that resistance?
I think that I used to be a hardcore gamer myself, right? And back in when I started studying, for instance, that's my favorite anecdote actually. I was playing Diablo 2, like an RPG, and I was farming gold there. And I was thinking, how cool would it be if I could use the gold that I farmed there and could actually spend it in, like flip it into credits and buy a better engine for my racing game, right? So I think that if you explain to gamers, even to hardcore gamers, why that's cooler to them, they will be much more open. Right now, they're in this phase where we don't want this because we got ripped off a bunch of times over the last 20 years, basically, or 15 years, specifically with the rise of free-to-play, which is not a good thing for gamers. But I personally think that NFTs, crypto, blockchain, are actually beneficial to game creators and therefore to gamers. So long-term, I think that the resistance will crumble, but it's going to take a little bit of time. So just like it took a long time with free-to-play as well, and in the beginning people were just saying, oh, this is just for mobile games. And then Fortnite came, and basically ever since, everyone is just building free-to-play games on desktop as well for hardcore gamers, right? And now with like Web3 games, play-to-earn games, whatever you want to call them, I think that's going to be the same, but it's going to take a few really good examples for fun games that are not a rip-off, where you just want to add more layers of monetization to an existing game. So I think that's what it really will need. Thank you. So enjoy.